Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohamad Asyraaf bin Ani, matrix number 119004. So today our group will present about the ecosystem of Islamic capital market. Islamic capital market transactions are carried out in way that do not conflict with the concerns of Muslim and the religion of Islam. Religion's law is upheld to keep Islamic practice like usury, riba, gambling, maisir and ambiguity out of the market. Islamic capital market plays a very important role to raise money, trading and moving it from one area of the economy to another. Islamic capital market where transactions for financial assets are complied with the Sharia process. This approach encourages and enables investors to look for Sharia compliant investment possibilities while operating in accordance with the traditional market. The Islamic capital market functions as a parallel market to the conventional capital market and plays a complementary role to the Islamic banking system in broadening and deepening the Islamic financial market in Malaysia. Therefore, the Islamic capital market has characteristics that are different from the conventional capital market. Different characteristics will enable the actual function, role and original purpose of the creation of Islamic capital market can be achieved. So, what are the characteristics of Islamic capital market? Among the characteristics of Islamic capital market are corporate governance strategy, Sharia governance framework, vehicle used for capital circulation. Capital market takes the form either physical or virtual facility to buy and sell the debt and equity securities, Sharia compliant stocks and Islamic structured product.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohamad Asyraaf. My metric number is 119080. So today I will present about the characteristics of the Islamic capital market. So first is corporate government strategy. The principle of the Islamic finance places a strong emphasis on the strong corporate government value and the structure, transparency, and the information disclosed. A proper corporate government system ensure the market participants act ethically and they reduce participants such as insider trading, fraud, and the corruption and the excessive speculative activity. Then the second characteristic is Sharia governance framework. The objective of the Sharia governance is to set up the expectation to ensure that Sharia compliant to provide a comprehensive guideline for the board, Sharia committee, and the management to fulfill the Sharia duties and to provide guideline on the Sharia review issue. To ensure the Sharia compliant in all aspects, all the Sharia board must provide direction and management should implementation in all relevant operation. So that's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Mohamad Arif bin Malek. My metric number is 11908001. I will continue with the third characteristic of Islamic capital market. The third characteristic of Islamic capital market is the vehicle used for capital circulation in the capital market is represented by securities. The securities come in the form of both debt and equity, which are characterized by negotiability of the price and immediate transferability with very low transaction costs. These securities have been a core operation in Islamic capital market to generate income with following Sharia law. In Islamic capital market, one of the most used securities in the transaction is sukuk. Sukuk is an Islamic financial certificate, also known as Islamic bond or Sharia compliant bond, and it denotes a percentage of ownership in a portfolio of permissible current or future asset. They could be viewed as the Islamic equivalent of conventional bonds, lending with interest payments or riba, which is regarded as usurious and exploitative in character, is forbidden under Sharia, and that's why conventional bond is prohibited to use in Islam. Furthermore, in present day, sukuk have seen high demand from Muslim investors in Malaysia. To illustrate further, Hashim H 2018 also state that internationally, Malaysia is currently the largest sukuk issuer in the world as at end June 2018. 2018, Malaysia accounted for 51.6% of the world's outstanding sukuk. It is proven that majority of the investors in Malaysia invest in sukuk and help to circulate the capital of Islamic capital. Moreover, the fourth characteristic of Islamic capital market is the capital market takes the form of either physical or virtual facilities to buy and sell the debt and equity securities. The examples of such market are stock exchange and over-the-counter or OTC markets. Over-the-counter refers to a method of trading securities that takes place through a network of broker-dealer rather than on a centralized exchange. Equities, the instrument and derivative financial contract whose value is derived from an underlying asset like a commodity can all be traded over the counter. However, stocks that are not listed on exchange and listed stock can both be traded over the counter. Therefore, over-the-counter market and stock exchange are the most important to an Islamic capital market because it helps the process of selling and buying the securities in any form, either physical or virtual facilities.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Umair bin Halim. My matric number 119081. So I will present about Sharia compliant stock. The definition of Sharia compliant stock: a stock of a publicly traded firm that have been designed as Sharia lawful for investment based on the company adherence to Sharia principle in its major business and investment operation, as well as its financial situation. The primary commercial and investment operation that generate money for the organization must comply to Sharia norms. As a result, the Securities Commission SC Malaysia has a Sharia Advisory Council SAC that is in charge of granting Sharia approval. The screening method ensures that Sharia compliant stock are not involved in excessive risk-taking, larger levels of borrowing, or contract exploitation. A Sharia compliant portfolio is also less vulnerable to liquidity issues and excessive portfolio risk because of the internal precaution recommended by Sharia stock. Considered Sharia compliant are more frequently than not of socially responsible companies. Then I want to present about requirement to offer Sharia compliant stock. Many standards must be met by Sharia compliant stock. Exclusion of assets that receive the majority of their revenue from the sale of alcohol, pig product, pornography, gambling, military equipment, or firearms is one of the conditions for a Sharia compliant stock. Then other requirement is a no riba because they are forbidden in Islam. As a result, purchasing shares in firms that are directly or indirectly related to riba or interest is prohibited. Other features of a Sharia compliant fund include an appointed Sharia board, an annual Sharia audit, and the donation of some bank sources of revenue, such as interest, by donating them to charity. Then the type of shares, they have 4 types of shares. First is ordinary share. An ordinary share represents undivided ownership by a shareholder in the business of the company. It represents the highest risk form of shareholding in a limited company, as any dividend payment are made only after all other obligations to creditors and holders of other securities are fulfilled. Then the second share is preference share. A preference share combines the features of equity and debt in a capital market. It is a form of equity that allows investors to receive fixed dividend, which is not the case for ordinary shareholders. The holders of preference share are treated in preference or priority over ordinary shareholders. Then third is bonus share. A bonus share is a free share of stock given to current shareholders in a company based upon the number of shares that the shareholder already owns. Then the last is right issues share. Right issues a share offered on discount to existing shareholder in proportion to their current shareholding, but their secretion is not an obligation on shareholders. Okay, then I will present about Islamic structured investment product. The definition of Islamic structured investment product is structured investment product, often known as SIP, are investment categories that use a tailored product mix to address the needs of individual investors. Derivatives are frequently used in SIP. Investment banks frequently produce them for hedge funds, business, or the mass market of retail customer. A structured investment frequently begins with a traditional security, such as a conventional investment grade bond or a certificate of deposit, and replace the typical payment features such as periodic coupon and final principal with non-traditional payoff derived not from the issuer's own cash flow but rather from the performance of one or more underlying asset. Then about the difference between Islamic structured investment product with conventional structured investment product. Islamic structured investment product SIP and conventional SIP are essentially the same since they employ the same process, with the exception that Islamic SIP use Sharia compliant contracts, which are permissible. Islamic SIP are also benchmarked to the performance of certain underlying assets such as equities, commodities, and real estate. And then, as previously stated, Islamic SIP must adhere to Sharia compliant regulation and avoid forbidden features such as riba, interest, horror, uncertainty, and Yasir, gambling. Then, as a result, the underlying asset in Islamic SIP differs from regular SIP in terms of Sharia compliance. In Islamic SIP, the relationship between investor and issuer or merger must be properly defined in accordance with the underlying contract and principle that have been adopted. And then the type of Islamic SIP, they have interest rate linked notes, FX linked notes, commodity linked notes, equity linked notes, bond linked notes, and last is credit linked notes. And then the types of conventional SIP is equity linked, commodity linked, FX link, interest rate link, bond link, credit link, and inflation link. And then I want to tell about the benefit of SIP. The major benefit of many SIP is the protection of part or all of the invested cash, and as such they are a perfect method to link an investment or deposit with the performance of financial market while assuming little or no capital risk. In general, SIP may be an appealing addition to an investment portfolio because they allow investors to build an investment structure to match their unique financial objective, taking into account aspects such as the investor's goals, risk tolerance, and time horizon. Some items, particularly those related to investment, are bundled with insurance coverage. This is an additional feature that entices even casual investors. Then the other benefit of SIP include the possibility for a positive return in a low yield or flat stock market environment, increased return within an investment, and tax efficient assets. Then the opportunity to capitalize on excellent pricing opportunities by leveraging the volatility of the underlying asset is another significant advantage of investing funds in SIP. And last, I will present about the risk of SIP. The first risk is issuer default risk. That is, SIP issuer may go bankrupt and fail on its commitment. Investors are considered unsecured creditors and have no preferential claims to the issuer assets. Then the second risk is product risk. With no collateral, investors may lose their whole investment if the issuer defaults. This is true for SIP that are uncollateralized and not asset backed. Next, the third risk is of gearing that are SIP, including derivative, warrants, and callable bull bear contracts. are leveraged, with the value changing fast based on the gearing ratio compared to the underlying asset. In this instance, the SIP value may plummet to zero, resulting in a total loss of the initial investment. Then the fourth risk is a maturity risk, that SIP have an expiration date after which the issuance may lose value. Investor must be aware of the expiry time horizon and select a product with a suitable investment lifespan. And then the fifth is the risk of foreign exchange. SIP with underlying asset rate priced in a different currency are subject to exchange rate risk. Currency change can reduce the value of the underlying asset and impact the price of the SIP. And the last risk is risk of liquidity. That is, all SIP issuer must choose a liquidity provider for each issue. According to the exchange, liquidity providers' role is to give two-way quotation to support the trading of their goods. Of a liquidity provider default or refuse to perform its function, investors may be unable to purchase or sell the asset until a new liquidity provider is allocated.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Aziz bin Abdullah, metric number 1192799. For the summary and conclusion, as we know, Islamic capital market is a fundamental component of the Islamic banking system in which Sharia compliant financial assets are traded. Islamic capital market transactions are carried out in a way that does not violates the Islamic faith of the consensus of Muslims. So we conclude that Islamic capital market can make financial institutions free from a haram activity like al-bayt, the prohibition of riba, the avoidance of ghara in the contractual agreement, and the accession of manufacture for forbidden items like sport. Next, the financial institution has own product that's better than conventional product like Sukuk, IRIS, IETF, and iUnit Trust. Sukuk will on particular contracts of exchange that may be complete via the sale and purchase of an asset with delay payment, license of certain assets, or participation in joint venture firm. Unlike conventional bond, the issue of Islamic bond necessitates that exchange of a Sharia compliant underlying asset for a financial consideration. Other than that, the Sharia compliant securities are publicly traded corporate securities that has been classified as Sharia compliant for investment due to the company adheres to the Sharia principle in its key business and its investment activity, as well as in financial status. The characteristic, the separated Sukuk, initial public offering, and private equity in the regulatory agency involved. The Security Commission is one of the regulatory authorities that engage in those three mechanisms. The Security Commission and Bursa Malaysia are the regulatory bodies engaged in the issue with the exception of initial public offering. The initial public offering, or IPO, issuing the procedure has become more complicated because Bursa Malaysia participation is one of the regulatory entity. Regarding the issuance of Sukuk, the important to keep in mind that a Sharia advisory council is necessary to ensure that the integrity of a company that abides by Sharia principle. Therefore, the various instrument types have various standards established for each of them. I think that's all from me. Thank you.